Alien reinvented the sci-fi horror genre by making space travel feel like a blue-collar job, and then putting those workers into a situation that transformed a spaceship into a haunted house.
3 minutes.
These ideas allowed the filmmakers to craft a terrifying thriller, but they also used these concepts to address our underlying fears of predatory behaviors. We're talking all about it this week in Kaden's Movie Club. Spoilers ahead, so if you haven't seen it, beat it. Multiple drafts of the Alien script had been sent to 20th Century Fox, but they kept rejecting the movie. And one of the big reasons for that was because they already had a sci-fi film they were about to release, and they fully believed it was going to be a financial disaster. When that movie, Star Wars, went on to become the highest-grossing movie of all time, suddenly Fox was very eager to make another sci-fi film. So they finally said yes to Alien. And even though they considered it to be a B-movie cash grab, it would go on to be one of the most revered movies of all time. The story starts in the year 2122 aboard the Nostromo, which is a commercial towing vehicle. So it's basically like a big cargo ship or even a semi-truck. The Nostromo is on autopilot heading back to Earth when its 7 crew members are woken up from hypersleep by the ship's computer system known as Mother. The problem is, they're still very far from Earth. The ship has received some kind of transmission from a nearby moon. These crew members all work for a company called Weyland-Yutani, and the contract they all agreed to requires them to investigate the transmission. So several of them take a shuttle to the moon. Once there, they discover a massive abandoned alien ship, and soon, they bring back Kane with some kind of creature attached to his face. The ship's captain, Dallas, was part of the group that went down to the moon, and now based on the chain of command, Ripley's in charge. And she tries to prevent them from bringing Kane back on the ship because it would break quarantine protocols. But Ash, the science officer, lets them in anyway. So we're already establishing a dynamic here. Ripley's authority was not respected. And Ash claimed that he was just trying to save Kane, but is clearly interested in the creature. Kane seems to be fine when the creature just falls off and dies. And then we go into the movie's most iconic scene.
Oh, man. I don't want to talk about it, man. I'm eating this.
What?
You might have noticed that at first, this scene is a little frustrating to watch because you can't really hear anybody.
What happened to this guy when he came back to his stomach's appetite?
The camera isn't focused on anyone specific, and all the characters are talking over each other. Those little touches make the audience feel agitated and on edge. And the reason Ridley Scott does this is to prepare us for the next moment when things start to go really wrong. To achieve the effect where it looks like an alien is bursting out of Kane's chest, they rigged a puppet onto a hydraulic arm that would punch up through a fake chest. The actor, John Hurt, would poke his head and arms out, but the rest of his body would be under the table. It was really uncomfortable, so between takes there were a few crew members whose only job was to give him a bunch of cigarettes and alcohol. So the little baby alien escapes, but within hours it's already grown to full size. And while I think the chestburster scene is the biggest shock of the movie, I think the adult xenomorph's first kill is where the tone of the movie really shifts. After that moment, the entire ship becomes its hunting ground, so the grungy, mechanical feel of the Nostromo works on 2 levels. At the beginning, it helps establish things visually by showing us who these characters are and the environment they live in. But now, its long, dark corridors, its engine room, its air ducts, all work in the same way the dark corners of a haunted house would.
Somewhere around the 3rd junction.
Okay, moving on.
You never know what's hiding in the dark waiting to get you. And the filmmakers definitely knew the less we see of the creature, the scarier it'll be. For most of the movie, we see the alien in really fast shots or extreme close-ups, but even those glimpses highlight how bizarre the creature is. One of the things that Ridley Scott made sure of was that the studio hired an artist named H.R. Giger to design the xenomorph. This is what initial designs looked like before Giger came along, but Ridley Scott wanted something that was scarier, that stood out more. He wanted something that genuinely felt alien or foreign to us. And Giger's biomechanical art style fit that bill. Giger's design also strengthened the movie's themes about sexual violence. I'm not going to get too detailed here, but just to be safe, here's a trigger warning for that topic. One of the true underlying fears of Alien is the threat of this kind of violence, and it's very deliberate that the first victim was a man. In the script, all the characters were given androgynous names so they could cast any gender except for Kane, who was always specified as a man. He's attacked by the facehugger, he's impregnated, and dies when the creature's offspring is born out of his body. But it doesn't stop there. The way the alien functions and its visual design is a callback to those themes. For example, it attacks with a second hidden mouth, like a deadly, unexpected kiss. Through this sci-fi lens, the story is able to communicate what that fear feels like to an entire audience. In most monster movies, the creature is trying to eat the characters, but that's not really what the xenomorph does. This becomes even more apparent in the next movie, but there was even a deleted scene from this one that showed the xenomorph had taken its victims and put them into a nest it built. It's specifically hunting its prey so it can use them to reproduce. This is why Ash calls it the perfect organism. It's designed to survive by eliminating threats and making more of itself at the same time. And speaking of Ash, we come to the movie's big twist.
Ash? You open the door?
Ripley talks to the ship's computer system and discovers that the company has ordered Ash to bring the creature back to them as an asset for research. They've told him that the xenomorph is top priority and that the rest of the crew is expendable. Realizing that Ash has betrayed them all, Ripley goes to confront him only to find out that Ash is a synthetic, or a robot. Since Ash is an android, he is completely loyal to the company and their interests. So when Weyland-Yutani decides that the value of an alien is worth more than the lives of their employees, Ash has no problem sacrificing them. This was probably a terrifying idea in 1979, but it's only gotten more relevant as technology has progressed since then. Ash is basically a form of AI, and he is secretly planted amongst a group of humans to deliberately deceive them and protect the company, even to the point of directly harming the company's employees. And with this twist, we can see why it was important for the story that the characters feel like average people. It's in the future, they're on a spaceship, they're in hypersleep when we first meet them, but it quickly communicates that they're essentially normal people at the mercy of a massive corporation. It makes their situation more relatable and then terrifying. As the xenomorph takes out the whole crew one by one, we finally come to Ripley as the last woman standing. It's one of those cruel ironies that if the rest of the crew had listened to her in the first place, they might have survived. And in the final scene, we see those underlying themes come full circle. When Ripley blows up the Nostromo to try and destroy the alien, it's a reversal of what the company has been trying to do to her.
3, 2, 1.
Not only will Weyland-Yutani not get the xenomorph they wanted so badly, but their ship and all of the material it was carrying is totally gone. Before entering hypersleep, Ripley strips down so she thinks she's safe, but she's actually at her most vulnerable. Because in the final twist, the xenomorph has also made it onto the escape shuttle with Ripley, and we have a final confrontation with this metaphor for violation and assault. Ripley stays calm, suits up, and launches the xenomorph out of the airlock using a harpoon gun. With Alien, Ridley Scott and his team delivered one of the most iconic cinematic interpretations of alien life by also making it one of the most terrifying. And that fear isn't just because it's a relentless predator. I think the underlying fears the xenomorph represents are a big part of why this movie has remained so relevant over the years. The xenomorph works as a literal manifestation of violation and assault and manages to communicate that fear to a wide audience regardless of gender. The xenomorph also allows a secondary commentary on the predatory behavior of corporations by creating a situation that makes their greed a key aspect in the story. But this is just the start of how we're going to see filmmakers use the concept of aliens to discuss other themes. Next week, we'll be taking a look at an alien that is the complete opposite of a xenomorph. E.T. the Extraterrestrial was released in June of 1982. It would not leave theaters until a year later in June of 1983. A typical theatrical run in the 80s would have been closer to 12 weeks, not 12 months. But it just kept making money. People kept showing up to see it. It opened at #1 at the box office for its first weekend, but it wasn't until its fourth weekend that it broke the record for the highest grossing weekend of all time. It would eventually go on to set the record it still holds today for the most weeks being the top earning movie at the box office with 16 weeks. And here's some questions to keep in mind while you watch. What common childhood experiences does Spielberg explore through the use of E.T. as a character? Why is it important to the themes that E.T. is an alien? Do you think it would change things if he was a dragon or some other mythical creature? What does E.T. represent to you? Is there an aspect of the story that resonates with you in particular? Why? So let's chat about Alien in the comments, and I'll see you back here next Sunday to discuss E.T. And if you want to stay in the know about Movie Club, you know where to go.